Poverty is a very real issue in the US, but this isn't about the entirety of the US right now. It's about Alaska. But to start, what exactly is poverty? Definitions of poverty can vary greatly from person to person, but a general definition from Franzer Institute would be that poverty is insufficiency, lack of basic necessities. Adding on, ASPE's guidelines for poverty in Alaska by yearly income is $18,210 for a household of one, adding $6,430 for every person after the one. Well, now that we know what poverty is, we can get into why it's an issue. When someone can't provide basic necessities to themselves and or their family, it causes a lot of issues like higher health risks, disease, lack of hygiene, starvation, loss of weight, dehydration, mental fatigue, depression, and physical fatigue due to constant work. These people are stuck in a state where they're either given money by welfare to survive or are working low-paying jobs to survive. They can't get enough money to get out of poverty, only enough to keep themselves alive and in poverty. But why should you care? Is any of this relevant to you? I'll give you some reasons to care about poverty. Number one, they're people too, and may have made some bad decisions and or had some bad luck, but they're people like you. And like them, you could also be in this position of poverty, where it can be very difficult to get out. Number two, the more people in poverty means the more taxpayers pay for them. Welfare programs are funded by the federal government, which funds them using taxpayers' monies. Reducing poverty would help reduce the amount of tax dollars going to these Medicare/welfare programs. Number three, people in poverty make up the working class. If these people in poverty were to get out, their state of living would substantially increase to where the work efficiency would also increase, as they would be in better health conditions. Bringing it back to Alaska specifically, where did a lot of poverty start? A lot of Alaska's poverty started when the gold rushes came around. Many people from all over America wanted to go to Alaska to mine this gold that's just been discovered, but going to Alaska was really difficult and required a lot of things, making it so when people got to Alaska, they didn't have anything more than what they brought on the way there, meaning now they had to stay in Alaska until they made enough money for the supplies to make the trip back, which was very tricky. A majority of people who went to mine gold went broke and had to stay in Alaska because they had no money for supplies to get back. These people would become Alaska's main group of impoverished people and the working class. Many factors contribute to poverty in Alaska, such as the harsh environment, very labor-intensive jobs, imported goods are expensive, housing is expensive, and the average wage of approximately $10, along with the minimum wage not being enough. Federal minimum wage is $7.25 per hour and approximately $15,000 annually for a full-time job on this payroll. It's been that way for more than a decade. According to this amount, by the ASPE's guidelines of $18,210 as the Alaskans' guideline for poverty, anybody working full-time federal minimum wage would be in poverty. Late 1960s full-time workers were paid $1.60 per hour. In today's money, that's more than $12 per hour. Doesn't Alaska have a yearly PFD to help Alaskans? While that is true, it by no means is enough to stop poverty from growing. But it, in fact, can help people pass the threshold of poverty. Estimates show that the Alaska Permanent Fund dividend has lifted 15,000 to 25,000 Alaskans out of poverty annually from 2015, and yet poverty continues to rise. Are there any solutions to poverty? Well, I can't say there is a de facto solution to solve poverty, or even if it is solvable, there are many ways of going about to reduce it, with the one I'm going to be arguing for, called the Raise the Wage Act. The act would, over a 5-year period, raise the minimum wage gradually from $7.25 to $15 an hour, also phasing out sub-minimum wage jobs, such as waitresses being reliant on tips, instead giving them an hourly payroll. How will this act work to help solve poverty? I'll give 3 reasons. Reason number 1. It will give incentive to work to those in poverty, as minimum wage would grow to be more sustainable. Number 2, minimum wage would be counteracting inflation, further helping people lift out of poverty. And number 3, more earnings to the workers to improve general living standard. This would provide appropriate income level for the cost of living. Ending sub-minimum wage would significantly decrease poverty without hurting employment, and this change would raise up to 3.7 million Americans out of poverty. Now, what can you do to help solve poverty in Alaska? A way you can get involved is to go out there and get your voice heard. Tell your senators, representatives, friends, neighbors, family to spread the word to get this bill passed. You can help poverty in Alaska, and in fact the US, to be reduced through this. Remember, people in poverty are still people, and we should try to make it able so that they can provide for themselves, as they, by the federal minimum wage at a full-time job, would still be impoverished. So the Raise the Wage Act would be an optimal choice to counter poverty and inflation throughout the entire US. Poverty may be something we could never solve, but that doesn't mean we can't try to make this nation a better place for all of us.